Tofu! Young Tofi. Not much. Tofi, you enjoying the splatter shot Nova Inkjet? What's the official name? Naki or whatever. I'm enjoying it. Kariki, what's up? Nexhalation. What emote is that? Oh, Flippa Floppa. Falco. Small Bear, welcome in, Small Bear. Small Bear, were you the one who said that you don't play in other tournaments because you'll get your butt kicked? Is that what your tweet was? Was you the bear that tweeted that yesterday? Which is a fair statement to say, actually. Totally fair statement to say. You know, I don't know if you've played in any of those Overlord tournaments before, but the vast majority of the teams you play, you would absolutely destroy. There are like most people that play those Overlord tournaments, it's like, did you just buy the game today? Like, how are you this bad? It's insane. But yeah, making top 16 do things are pretty tough. Let me load up Discord. What is this, by the way? What song is this? What's up, Sam? What's unplayable for 9 to 5 workers in the Eastern time zone? Oh, the challenge times? I haven't done any challenges. Yes, Tofi. Tofi got it. This is not Mega Man, no. Tofu got it right, or Bland White Cube. Got it right. This is Guile's theme from Street Fighter 2. Mega Man's not a bad guess. I usually play some Mega Man stuff here. Should we play, since Proving Grounds is this Friday, and we started playing Super Nintendo music instead of Splatoon music and over again, think we could just do the Street Fighter 2 soundtrack? Or would Final Fantasy 4 be the play? Okay. Still better than Splatoon music. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Popcast. Whenever you're listening to this, whether it be live or a VOD, Twitch or YouTube, or Spotify, while you are trying to figure out how there are more players in +2 than there are in +3, staying up insanely late trying to get involved in the challenges, changing your emote height so that you can fist bump some randos during solo queue. Whatever it is that you're doing right now, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to this. Unless I don't. It is June, the last real month before Pop Gun Jr., in theory, will grace us with his presence. Exciting times. The wifey just got back from a Taylor Swift concert this past weekend, and that is going to be the last time that we are going to leave the city of Indianapolis until our kid is born. At this point, it's basically we hope, or we're assuming at the end of July, he's going to be born, but in theory, he could come out at any moment. It's not likely to happen, but we're ready for either way. Exciting times to go through with that. And of course, June, this being the last month I get without having a kid annoying the snot out of me, in some sense, I'm going to be spend it talking to you guys, the idiots in chat who have carried us through this entire pregnancy by distracting us from nonsense, because we appreciate you guys. Unless I don't. News of tournaments may be of interest to the casual listener of the Popcast. Little Squid League is this Saturday. It has been a hot minute since there's been a Little Squid League tournament, but you can participate in one this upcoming Saturday. They've been getting triple digits as far as registration is concerned, and I have no idea where they are at right now. But luckily for me, I have Battlefy loaded up. It is Monday before the tournament, and they are at 64 teams already, with 9 more pending. So good things on the horizon. That is the 30th edition of Little Squid League, and I finally am going to have an excuse to wear my Little Squid League hat that I got at Low Tide City courtesy of Jubb, so I'm excited about that. SAC is this upcoming weekend. The opening tournament of SAC season number 7. Those of you who complain, well, it's the same day as the Nintendo tournament. Bruh, none of you are going to do anything. If you're SAC eligible, you're not going to do that well in a Nintendo tournament. Mark my words. I'm not scared to say it. I ain't afraid to say it. Also, I forgot this because I'm an ignorant North American person, and I bet you a lot of you did as well, but the Rising Squid Land in Europe is actually taking place this weekend. It should be streamed on Dapple Productions. I think Dapple Productions is running the entire event, actually. If there's anyone, I know my EU audience, only the crazies watch me live, but if there's anyone who watching the VOD and you are going to the Rising Squid Land, I believe it's in, I forget which country it's in, honestly. Sorry. But if you're going and you want to talk about your experience, DM me on the Popcast. We'll set it up and we'll ask you some questions to figure out how things are going as far as the Rising Squid Land is concerned. So we're like, yeah, Octopi is the last team to win Little Squid League. That's how long ago that was. Wow. Good to have Little Squid League back. Today, we are going to be looking at Minnow Cup. It has been a long time since I've talked about Minnow Cup here on the Popcast, and also a very last-minute addition. We're going to squeeze in a chat with Pro Chara, who makes the Nintendo chat go crazy just by mentioning his name. So we'll get some of his insights on some of the things that took place yesterday. But first, it is quite often here on the Popcast that I make fun of our overlords at Nintendo because the tournaments that they host, while extremely entertaining, from a TOing perspective, they suck. They're really bad. They're horrible. And it's so bad that it's extremely entertaining to watch. I'm not saying the stream sucks or anything like that. But the format of the tournament that Nintendo runs, you would never touch that at any other grassroots tournament that's going on. Still entertaining, though, and I got to give it props for that. If you're in the podcasting business, Nintendo tournaments have always been free content for you to talk about. Always been free. I have made a career on the Popcast here just talking about some of the silly and stupid things that take place in these Nintendo tournaments. And while nothing silly/stupid happened this past weekend, there's still plenty of great stuff to talk about. So let's dive right into it. First off, I want to bring up a tweet that Magic 8 Ball tweeted out yesterday on Twitter. If you were paying attention to the stream yesterday, there was about 1,000 or so that were watching the Twitch channel chat, which I was watching because the Twitch one is always like a few seconds ahead of the YouTube audience. But more people were watching the YouTube than the Twitch one. About 2,000 people were watching YouTube live, about 1,000 on Twitch. So combined, if you want to play that game where you combine different streams into one, you got about 3,000 people watching this live. Magic brought up the point that the viewership for this one feels like it's down, that there's less people watching this tournament live than what there has been in the past. And we use the term feel because there's no real hard evidence. There's no researchable data. It's not like I can just go back and pull up what was the live numbers for the last qualifier or the qualifier 2 or 3 years ago. It's not like that data exists. So it's just more of a feeling kind of thing. And yeah, it did feel like there were a lot more people that were watching these things before, but you can't really tell one way or another. And it doesn't really, I think it doesn't really matter for the grassroots community how many people are watching the Nintendo tournament. I don't know how many people watch those Nintendo tournaments and get turned on to competitive Splatoon from what they see in that. I'm not convinced of that. There's a lot of people in the chat who are clearly there for the first time. I saw somebody say something like, Nintendo doesn't allow you to run personal tournaments. You can only use the private battle feature if you're playing in Nintendo's tournaments. It's like, how, come on. There's a whole new world you're missing out there, buddy. Just Google something. There's a competitive scene that exists here. We do tournaments all the time. Maybe too many tournaments. I don't know. But while you can't argue if the numbers for viewership are going up or down or sideways or in circles or anything like that, the one thing you can look up and confirm are the viewership, the participation numbers, the amount of teams that are actually playing in this event. This past tournament that you saw is technically the smallest Nintendo tournament in Splatoon 3 ever. As far as North America is concerned, I know they're starting to creep back into Europe. I don't look at the numbers for that, but they're also kind of weird how they're doing it in Europe compared to North America. But hey, at least they're acknowledging Europe. South America is still like, can we play? Can we try to play in this one? No. Panama is still in North America. We still can't play. No. All right, fine. The numbers are down. 133 teams technically signed up for this tournament over the past weekend. That is a very low number as far as Nintendo is concerned. Now, for anybody else, 133 teams is fantastic. That is a lot of teams. For low Inc., for us, that's more of, that's a low number of low Inc. Oh, we're falling off. Things are falling apart. Is this time to hit the panic button right now? No, it's not. 133 teams. I don't care if you're Nintendo or whoever. That's still a decent number of half. Is there anything to read into that number being lower? No. I've always said I don't really care what the number for low Inc. is, as long as the viewership is still good. And is the viewership still good with the Nintendo ones? I don't know. I don't know if Nintendo thinks the viewerships are as good or not. Because, as we know, this tournament isn't designed to produce a true champion. It's not designed to figure out who the best is or any of that nonsense. The system is designed to be a giant-ass commercial. Nintendo's trying to sell Splatoon 3 to you. So the more people they have watching this event, that's all they care about, because that's more eyeballs. What's this game? Look at all these different modes. Why is this the giant commercial? Let's dive into everything that makes it just that. Now, as much as I dunk on the Nintendo things, it's important that we have this tournament in the community, because there's a lot of people that will play into these Nintendo tournaments, and this is the first time they'll ever play in anything competitive. And those of you that play in these tournaments know exactly who I'm talking about. Your first round opponent, usually, at least when I played in these things, was somebody that was like, did you just buy the game 10 minutes ago? Like, it is unacceptable that you are this bad at playing the video game. There's so many people that are like that. Raise your hand if you've ever been reported for spawn camping, or in my team's case, we weren't spawn camping, but we were beating them so bad, they thought we were cheating. They thought we found ways. They didn't realize that you could go like all the way up in the Art Academy to certain spots. They thought we glitched to get up top there, and they reported us for cheating. That's the kind of people you're going up against. But as somebody who's been paying attention to verifying teams for low Inc. for about 3 years now, I can tell you there's a lot of times where we are looking at a team and we're looking at their history, and the only thing they've ever done is the Nintendo tournament. It's a gateway into what actual tournaments are. And yes, they play in low Inc. and they go like 0-6, and sometimes they never come back. But still, they eventually find out about us through the Nintendo tournament. So there is a little bit of joy to be brought in from that. The actual teams, however, and by actual teams, I'm talking about the littlest babies in Little Squid League all the way up to whatever the tippity top level is that you want to classify that as that. Those teams aren't casuals, though. They're bought in. They're the sweaties. They know what this tournament is actually about. And they're willing to play in this event. Now, Minnow Cup took place this past weekend as well. We're going to talk about Minnow Cup a little bit here. Minnow Cup ran at the same time as this Nintendo tournament. Did that hurt the Nintendo tournament numbers? Is that why more people weren't playing in this one? No. Because the low-level teams don't really care about Nintendo tournaments. They really don't. And vice versa. The teams that would play in the Nintendo tournament don't care about low-level events. Most of them don't even know they exist. Low Inc. ran at the same time as a Nintendo tournament. We still got our 150, way too many teams sign up for our Low Inc. And Nintendo had 188. Like, we can coexist at the same time as them, which is why when someone's like, somebody tell them SAC's going on at the same time as a Nintendo tournament, I guarantee you, nobody at SAC/IPL could give less of a crap about that. It doesn't affect each other. They can coexist at the same time, but they're not stealing teams from each other. And it's better to have an option. If Minnow Cup didn't exist, do you think those low-level teams would have played in the Nintendo tournament? No. I would argue the vast majority of them just wouldn't play at all because they don't want to play in this event. Now, why would they not want to play in this event? What's wrong with the Nintendo tournament? Well, day one is a ladder stage, which admittedly, ladder stages are fun. They are player-friendly, team-friendly. They are the worst thing you could do to try to produce a champion, but ladder stages by themselves are fun. You know what's not fun? You know what the vast majority of the community does not think is fun? Turf War. And before you guys go on this tangent, defending the honor of Turf War, okay, you're allowed to like it, but you're also allowed to acknowledge that the vast majority of other people don't like it, especially for competitive. And you can get on this soapbox and say, well, their only defense is that Turf War is the mode that ends in the last 30 seconds. It's the only last 30 seconds that matter. That's the only defense they have. Yeah, that's the only defense you need, because that is not a fair mode for competitive when it comes down to that. Yes, it comes down to the last 30 seconds. Guess what? What if tower control was not, the objective wasn't who pushed the tower the furthest. It was just where does the tower end when the game is over. I could push the tower 100 points to the enemy team. You can't KO in Turf War, so I'm just going to keep the tower at the final checkpoint for 4 minutes, and then the tower, the other team is able to capture it and move it just slightly across mid, and they score 1 point. Well, that 1 point they scored just so happens to be when the timer ran out, so the team that scored the 1 point is the team that wins. That's stupid, isn't it? That's what Turf War is. That's why the argument of it comes down to the last 30 seconds is valid, unlike Turf War itself. I'm sorry. Now, I know I'm saying that, saying full well that there are people in chat who picked up a win that almost nobody in this community can say that they have. That's right. Take your meds. This is your opportunity. This is your one shining moment, because you guys beat Starburst in a mode regardless where nobody has beaten Starburst, period. When I tweeted out earlier a couple of months ago what Starburst's overall record against teams from the West was, I excluded Turf War. Now, I don't think they've actually lost any Turf War sets. I just excluded it because Turf War's dumb. Why would you include it? I think the only time Starburst lost a Turf War set was that best of one match they played against Mad Titans in the first ever game of competitive Splatoon played ever, Splatoon 3 ever, at that PAX event that was a week before the game actually came out. They lost that one to the seeding, and that's why they played Sayonara in round 1 of that tournament. Ever since then, I don't think they've lost and that was just a best of 1 set for seeding. I don't think anybody else other than DNA, who beat them twice over the past weekend as well in Turf War, can say that they beat Starburst in Turf War. Now, I'm a big fan of the players of Take Your Meds. Obviously, Greg, big fan of the Popcast, I know. I'm a big fan of Greg. Fusion, one of my favorite commentators. That's why we have them on pretty much every single Proving Grounds that we can. By the way, Fusion, if we haven't reached out to you yet, we'll do that. Leo, man, me and Leo go way back to when Destiny Troops and Xanadu were having their rivalry back in late 2020 and early 2021. Some of my favorite times of competitive Splatoon is when Leo Xanadu and my Destiny Troops were just brawling at it every single tournament that we were playing in. And I don't know anything about Steffi, but I know they're the 4th member on that team. So congratulations, Fix Your Meds. Should you be getting into the plus servers with that result? No. Does that mean you can't celebrate and still be proud about it? Of course not. That's an awesome win. Is it valid, though? That's the question everybody asks. Who cares? You're allowed to be excited about things. But that's what ladder is. Starburst loses 3 times, which means they're still in the top 16. But seeding causes this little issue here because of the ladder thing and the tiebreaker and the awkwardness of, well, do we queue up for another match, meaning we could lose, but if we win, we can prove our seeding, or do we just stop with our 9-1 record and just call it a day? Welcome to ladder stage. I've already done so many episodes talking about how ladder is dumb for actual competitive tournaments. I'm not going to continue on with that. Just take my word for it. Never do a ladder tournament unless it's something that you would do for just as an opportunity to get as many quick results as you can without a top cut or a grand finals afterwards based off the seed, or some sort of prize for whoever wins the ladder. That's why the Ludi Speed Ladder seeding tournament before the season actually takes place is such a smart, brilliant format. Just give everybody the opportunity to rack up as many results as they can, and who cares who wins the actual ladder or not. That's not the point. The point is to just play as many matches as you can. It works in that context. So far, the Nintendo one doesn't make sense. Now, I will say this, though. There's not really any other format Nintendo can do with this many teams. When you got this many teams and the vast majority of them you can't seed, it's not like you can do a group stage. They used to do those single... You guys remember those single elimination tournaments they used to do? Oh my gosh, that was insane, those tournaments. And you can't do Swiss, really. I mean, could you imagine how much hand-holding you got to do? You know how frustrating it is for us to get low-ink teams through Swiss. Imagine teams that are just figuring out Battlefy, how to get all of them through Swiss in a matter of time. It would take you 50 minutes to get through each round. It would be so annoying. So ladder's really the only thing they can do to boil it down. And at the end of the day, I feel like the top 16 teams were the right top 16 teams. There's been tournaments where there's been a Div X team that didn't make top 16, but a little Squid League team did. And it's like, okay, something's flawed here. But I feel like for this qualifier, you got the teams you were supposed to get. And the good news is, unlike the last qualifier, Starburst and Jackpot got to play each other on stream. Is it awkward that they're playing in the first round on stream instead of grand finals? Yeah, kind of. But at least they're played on stream, unlike the last time where Sayonara and Starburst played an epic Game 5 that was only being streamed on the player's point of view. It happened in the round of top 8 before they could get to the top 4. Starburst won that one barely, Game 5 being a Splat Zone's mincemeat game. What other tournament are you going to see that kind of game light up? But still, we didn't get to see it. Why didn't we get to see it? Because Sayonara was seeded so low in the top 16, and the reason they were seeded low is because they played Starburst in the latter round twice. Oh, boy. But we're lucky, though. We got to see Starburst and Jackpot actually play against each other this time around on stream. And good golly, Miss Molly, that was an instant classic. That was a fantastic set between those two teams. It was such a good one where you didn't leave the set feeling like, oh, Starburst is clearly the better team of the two here. You felt like they were dead even with each other, and it just so happened that Starburst was the last team standing at the end of Game 5. That is the definition of a great set. If you go back and look at the scores of each one, it's just like a 1 or 2 point difference between the games here and there. Game 1 was a KO, but it was a come from behind KO from Jackpot. Game 2 was a huge lead for Starburst at the end, but they didn't get that push, that like game-winning push until deep into that game. Like all of those games were right. Anybody could have won any of those 5 games. That's exciting to see. And you're just like sitting on the edge of your seat, especially in game 3 and 4 and 5, where it looks like, oh, Jackpot could close this one out right here. And it's like that kind of excitement we don't get that often. So it is exciting to see that. If only the counter pick system wasn't completely broken. So, if you're not familiar with the rules for the counter pick system, you didn't pay attention to the stream because they put the rules up like 20 different times. For game 1, the higher seeded team picks the mode. The lower seeded team picks the map. Going forward, the winner of the game picks the mode for the next game, and the loser picks the map for the next game. There's a catch to this as well. One more wrench to throw into that kind of mess. You have to cycle through all 4 modes before you play a new mode in Game 5, or repeat a mode in Game 5. Now, from the viewers, I'll have to say that's a great kind of mindset that you have to play all 4 modes first. It's entertaining. I like the fact that I know I'm going to see something completely different and from one game over to the next. That's refreshing from the viewer point of view. There are about 10 million, maybe 11 million different ways you can make it also entertaining for the audience and not complete bogus for the teams that are actually playing in this one. So think about it. I just explained the rules to you. When you think about it, that means game 1, where the higher seed gets to control the mode right off the bat, is fine. But when you have to play all 4 modes before you can repeat one, you do realize the value of your counter pick as the winning team decreases over time. Game 3, if you win game 3, you don't even get to decide what the game 4 mode is going to be. That was predetermined by whoever won game 2. So the value goes down until all of the sudden, if you win game 4, you get to decide of all the modes that are available, which all 4 become available right at the end of game 4, you get to decide the mode for game 5. Now, the losing team still gets to pick the map, and don't get me wrong, still having control of what the map is a huge help, even if you're the losing team. But my goodness, the value of winning game 4 is infinitely higher than the value of winning game 3 as far as the counter picks are concerned. That is crazy. The value of your counter pick should not fluctuate over the course of the set. What is the usual counter pick system that we have for low ink? I always say if you win game 1, that means all you got to do is win on your counter picks, and eventually you'll get to control the counter pick in game 5, the decisive game 5. Here, you could be down 1-2 in the set. You get to win game 4. If you win game 4, not only do you go into game 5 with momentum, but you have the most counter pick value of all in the most important map game in the set. That is ridiculous. That is so ridiculous. And it happened twice. When I saw Starburst versus Jackpot play against each other, and Jackpot wins game 4, Starburst wins game 4 on Clan Blitz Eeltail, and I saw game 5 was Rainmaker Undertow, I was like, whoa, wait, why would Jackpot pick that? They've been dodging Rainmaker the entirety of the Ink TV run. Not to say that they're bad at Rainmaker, but obviously Starburst was really good at Rainmaker, especially that was the first game they won in the set. Now all of a sudden, after scratching and clawing their way through game 4, they have to play Rainmaker? How does that benefit Jackpot, who's been leading the set the whole way? They won game 3, they won game 5, and now they got to go in. They won game 1, they won game 3, and now they got to go into a game 5 down momentum and down counter pick value. Man, that's tough. Now, the same thing happened in the opposite set, Last Resort and Duck Gang, where I believe Duck Gang was able to win game 4, but Last Resort was able to win on the other team's mode counter pick. Maybe work it out into their favor there, but still, you can't deny the fact that the counter pick rules for this one are diminish the value of the tournament a little bit. If they want to do every single mode first before you go to a different mode in game 5, there has to be a better way to do it. What if you just have a collaboration like Big House did between the two teams and figure out what the modes are before you even play game 1? So it's not whoever wins game 4 that decides the fate of game 5. You figure that out before you even get to a game 5. You figure it out right then and there, and then just whoever loses gets to pick a map that's available for that mode going forward. That way you would get to see every single mode, and it's not complete bullcrap. But hey, there it is. Now, these rules, as stupid as they are intentional. Why does Nintendo want every single mode on stream before you can make a repeat mode? It's because they want the audience to see every single mode. Again, this is just a giant commercial. They're showing off all the game has to feature. Nintendo's not going to be happy if all people do is counterpick Splat Zones over and over and over again, and they never see Clan Blitz. The rules are there to make sure you see everything in the tournament. And even though it diminishes things for the players aren't the most important thing Nintendo's looking out for. They're looking out for the viewership. They're looking out for the people who could potentially buy this game. Regardless of that, though, Starburst and Jackpot, fantastic set. Part of me is happy that Starburst was the team that came out on top, just because I know the narrative would have been, if Starburst lost, that people would have discredited Jackpot's win a little bit by saying, oh, well, Biscuit wasn't playing and Kyo was in. And I'm like, I'm glad that narrative isn't in place. And also, I'm glad that these two teams get to play each other again at a LAN setting. And hopefully it's not a Starburst 4-0 with Biscuit squid bagging in the enemy base on stream in grand finals, and something a lot more competitive. Like, I hope what we saw yesterday was just a taste of more to come, not just in these Overlord tournaments, but in more of the continuing rivalry between Starburst and Jackpot. Speaking of Starburst and Jackpot, both of them qualified out of this event, and they will be playing in Seattle, probably against each other in the grand finals, unless the Turf War seeding screws them over yet again. Which creates this kind of interesting dynamic for the second qualifier that's going to be taking place this weekend. If you think back to the teams that qualified last PAX event, Starburst, they're back. You had Sayonara, but this time around you got Jackpot, which is made up of, I believe, 2 members of that Sayonara team, and then Jared from Destiny Bond being thrown in there as well. So Destiny Bond's not coming back. And you got Crush Soda, who's not coming back because Kyo has abandoned his teammates and has joined Starburst for this run through the NA Open. So that leaves 2 spots that we almost always guarantee for particular teams that are up for grabs. And it leaves this awkward kind of 2 holes opening of, well, who's going to fill them? Who are the 2 other teams that are going to take a stab at Jackpot and Starburst? I have a list of teams, and nobody outside of these list of teams is going to qualify for the tournament at the end of this weekend. Clip it after I'm done. The teams that I have that are going to be in a absolute dogfight next weekend. First off, we got to talk about Last Resort. Yes, we'll talk to ProChar a little bit in a minute, but let me get my spiel out of the way first. Last Resort looked really, really good yesterday. They looked like, man, if they hold on to that lead in Game 4, they're taking Starburst to a Game 5. The fact that they took Starburst to a Game 4 by itself, the fact that they beat them on Rainmaker Museum by themselves, that was crazy enough. But it wasn't just a one-off thing. They were competitive the entire way through. And what makes Last Resort even more ridiculous, what they were doing, Char is using S-Blaster, which has been in the game for like a week, and they dropped the double wiper or wiper stamper comp they've been using, threw in an in-zap, and only used the single wiper of Hammer, I believe, one, maybe two times, mostly using the other wiper Deco, which yet again is a new weapon that just came out. How can they just pick up these weapons that just exist and are not only making grand finals, but are competing, threatening to beat Starburst right off the bat? That is so bizarre. Now, while Last Resort should be a favorite to win, straight up win the next qualifier, I'm not putting all our stock into that. I'm not putting all my eggs in the Last Resort basket. We've done that before. Last Resort has flirted with us. They asked us out to prom. We bought into them, and when we showed up to prom, they were dancing with somebody else and they broke our heart. Last Resort is not to be trusted until they get consistent results. And I say that full well knowing there are plenty Last Resort players in chat. You've broken our hearts before, but there's reason to be optimistic. Again, if they're doing this with weapons they just got from Sheldon, imagine what another week of practice would do. Imagine what their ceiling could be. I want to see it, though, before I buy in. Some teams are going to have to deal with. Of course, we got to throw Duck Gang in the conversation here, because Duck Gang looks like they really don't care who they're playing against. Duck Gang really looks like they couldn't care less who their opponent is. They just want to play the game, and they're not scared of anybody. Absolutely not scared of anybody. Took Last Resort to a Game 5. Looked like they were for sure going to threaten, not just threaten Jackpot, but again, beat them as well. And that's good kind of parody that Jackpot didn't just steamroll them. I believe Duck Game won Game 1. And, oh, man, they would have won that cheesy counter pick of Tower Control Flounder Heights if they just hold on just a little bit longer of a lead there. But Duck Game looks like they're world beaters. And, they beat Alliance Rogue back when they were Tempest, in 20XX in a best of 3. There's nobody these guys can't beat. I think should be a heavy favorite going forward. I got 3 other teams that should be in the mix and are more than capable of doing some damage against these players. First off, DNA has to be in the conversation, right? Like, you can't not include DNA. I know they didn't qualify for the Ink TV League. I know we don't see DNA play that often as the actual DNA team. But they took Duck Game to a Game 5. They have to be in that conversation. I don't trust them to get out and actually qualify for the event, but you can't take them out of the conversation. You can't. They have to be in there. Their resume, their roster demands that they be there. It's just, can they actually get the job done? I'm not sure. And that leaves 2 other spots. And you start to look back through who else could still exist here. You guys realize Smoothie is a contender to win this event, right? Like, as weird as that is to say out loud, if you look at what Smoothie's been doing recently, and at the same time, you look at what they've been doing in SOS, and they can't get another tournament win in that, even though they're playing every single SOS. And you start to think, but you look at what they did at Low Tide City, And when they played Last Resort, they 3-0'd them on stream. And yes, I know the roster Last Resort's going to bring in is going to be slightly different from what was at Low Tide City. Do you think Smoothie really cares? Do you think Smoothie's going to go into that one thinking they're the underdog? I think Smoothie has a legit chance of flying out to Seattle if they play well next weekend. I would be surprised, unless seeding really screws them over in the latter thing. I legit think Smoothie's going to end up on stream. And with the pressure they've been playing under on streams the past couple Low Tide Cities, I don't think it's going to get to them. I think they're going to play great. I think Smoothie is a legit dark horse to go to Seattle. If their big brother doesn't sign up. Where is Nightmare? If there's ever been a tournament for Nightmare, who plays in every single weekly and bi-weekly and wins every single one of them, making it out of the winner's side of every single double elimination bracket and winning and just racking up all these Sindao badges. Where the hell is Nightmare? Jackpot and Starburst are gone. This is your opportunity to book a ticket to Seattle. You guys destroy Smoothie every single time you play them, and everybody else in this tournament knows you would be the actual favorite. I don't think Nightmare played last weekend, or maybe some of those players did like a pickup of something else. Usually they do a pickup and name themselves something stupid to hide the fact that they're Nightmare. But my goodness, this qualifying tournament is begging. It's almost like the Batman signals being displayed up in the sky. It's the Nightmare logo, Gengar up in the sky. This is your chance to become a legend. Just sign up and play. None of these teams can beat you. Yes, they can, but they won't. They won't beat you. Come on, Nightmare. Let's see it. Make it happen. So those are my 5 teams that are going to qualify. Nobody outside of those 5 is going to do it. Set to Destroy X. Yes, the roster is good. The roster for Set to Destroy X is good. Last Resort 3-0'd them. Zero Power, Seth, Sun, and Henry. Man, Henry was on that team that Henry was on the team that finished second place in Big House, right? Man, it sucks to say Set to Destroy X isn't going to be in those 5, but if there's 5 teams I got to pick, I got to go with that. And Set to Destroy X, if you guys make it in, and I'll do a entire segment offering you guys an apology. But I really like Smoothie. I really like Nightmare. You can't discredit those 2 teams. And DNA played better last weekend than Set to Destroy X did. Those are my 5. But those are just my thoughts. Let's bring in somebody who can bring their own perspective to things. It is now that moment where yet another chat that has been set up through the in the pre-show, because I wasn't paying attention to things. Let's bring in Prochara.
Hello there.
Hello.
Am I all good on stream?
You should be on stream, good wise.
Okay.
I'm getting pretty good at pulling these interviews out of my ass at last minute, so I'll make it work. Okay, let's get right into it. S Blaster, how does that feel? Like, what is it? Because Stamper got nerfed so much, or do you just really feel that thing?
I will say that like S Blast is by far the weapon I felt most comfortable with. Like, I really like Stamper. For a bit, I thought I liked it as much as Range, but I was never confident in it. S Blast to me feels more comfortable than Range Blaster does, and I have played that thing for almost 7 years. And within less than 1 week, I feel more confident on 92 than I ever did with Range Blaster. It's literally just my perfect weapon in terms of like play style, the kind of things I go for, the kind of gimmicks I like, everything. And on top of that, it is surprisingly flexible for different maps with the 2 firing modes. I haven't encountered a single map where I'm like, okay, yeah, this weapon just doesn't work here at all. Like, every single map, I feel like it could work. There are definitely some that feel weaker, but for the most part, like, I feel like it's so strong. Like, the main weapon feels so powerful, and it feels like a lot of limitations that blasters have had with, like, inflexibility of their ranges and jump RNG and movement and all of that just feel gone, and it feels amazing. I didn't play Stamper, but it had nothing to do with the nerfs. I have actually played a bit of Stamper post-patch, in like a few pickups and just in general. And honestly, I don't really feel much of a difference. I don't do QR in it anymore, but like if you're used to playing non-QR, I think the weapon doesn't really feel that different. But I didn't pick it mostly because I just didn't find it did what we needed in the comp we were trying to run.
Is Reef Slider is Reef Slider undervalued? Because it doesn't feel like it's horrible. It might not be the ideal special, but it doesn't feel like it's that bad of a special, honestly.
I have a saying now because I have always dumped on Reef Slider. Uh, here's my excuse, okay? Tetra players gaslit me. They called it the worst thing ever. They called it worse than Splashdown, and I believe them, and I shouldn't have done that. Maybe pre 3.1 buff, they're probably right. But post 3.1 buff, nah, this thing is not even that bad. Like, it does really good special damage, and it does like solid DPS in general, like 70 damaging a giant radius. It flips zones, it pops shield, like it can even stall tower. There was a tech I was really hoping to be able to use with Reef Slider, but then Machine got nerfed where if you throw Booyah Bomb at the tower and you pop Reef Slider on the edge of it, you can Reef Slide explode on the tower and tank the entire thing. And I was so hoping I'd be able to show that, but no one plays Machine now because they like hit it way too hard. So that's a bit unfortunate. And obviously, Tri-Strike, they just throw another strike and you die.
I want to ask about the Machine nerf because we saw Madness tweeting out about, oh, this sucks, basically. And we saw a lot more slosher play in place of where that Machine was. And now, you saw a little bit of Machine, especially from Madness, but you saw a lot more slosher in general. My theory is everybody that used Machine is so used to the rhythm of it to where initially they feel like they're really thrown off by it. But I still feel like given a month or two, people will go back to Machine when they forget what the old rhythm was. What do you think of that theory?
I think it depends on if the pace of the meta gets slower, because I think the nerf in conjunction with the meta and just like everything being pushed faster, especially after World Championship, where like we quickly realized, oh wow, Japan plays this game way faster than we do. We kind of got run over. Maybe we should look into that a little bit. So, like Bucket has a way worse kit, but Bucket is way better a main weapon at being fast. Like it already was pre-patch compared to Machine. But after the nerf, it's way faster. And just Machine, it's not that bad. And like certain map modes, it's fine. Like that's where like I think Madness picking in the places he did is fine. If you have a lot of cover and you have a comp around it, I think it's okay. But I don't think it's your do everything AoE weapon like it was. Like before this patch, there was no reason to pick any other area of effect weapon. Like no rapid, no blaster, no slosher, nothing. Like there was no reason to pick it because Fizzy did everything. Like Machine did everything. It could kill. It had solid AoE. It had a giant hitbox. It didn't have a radius that it needed. It had Fizzy Bomb. It got Booyah Bomb really fast, even at 220. Like you just had no reason to pick anything else. And now like the floodgates are kind of opening a little bit. The only problem is every other AoE weapon is so underpowered in this game in one way or another that Machine is still being picked. Like Machine is not a good weapon, but the other AoE options are so limited that it still gets picked. That is my hot take.
Fair enough. And we did see a lot more of Rapid Pro being used.
Yeah, Rapid Pro is really good.
So Zap, or just talk about the whole comp that you guys were using yesterday, because it's not a comp you guys would have used 2 weeks ago or 1 week ago.
Yeah, not even 3 days ago. So our initial plan was to do Stamper, Wiper Deco / V Wiper, like alternating based on map mode, Splash, and Ballpoint. That is what we've been practicing. I was planning to do Machine until the nerf, and in fact, before we knew Wiper Deco's kit, Arashi was legitimately playing Machine on tower control every single time. So there was a reality where this nerf wasn't as drastic, and we played double Splash, double Machine on tower. But that didn't happen, luckily, so it's not as bad. But we started running into cooler comps. Like a few of the top level teams were experimenting with it. And like we would literally play well and just struggle so hard to fight it. And then Slacker was just like, dude, this thing got buffed. This fits your style. Like you guys are always the QR type team. Why don't we just do it? Because this is literally how we like to play the game. Like, I get it's new, but also this fits way better how we play than the shit we're running right now. So we were like, okay, we'll try it. And we literally had like 3 different comps on the table to try to make it work. One of which meant I was the Zap, by the way. Like, I almost was the Zap player at one point. And we eventually figured out a comp that worked, and the comp involved 92 instead of Stamper. And I think the reason is that we wanted 2 weapons that could be QR. Like, Arashi was a hybrid QR, but he still used to play missile sometimes. So we needed something that could be full quick respawn, and something else that I think is very helpful in AoE. Like, AoE in general is still very helpful, like area of effect hits. And that's why, like, Vanilla Slosher is popular still, because Vanilla Slosher still covers that. You still want something that does it. So for us, instead of the Vanilla Slosher, we had the Blaster. Like, that was the idea. And I thought was basically, well, 1, I can't learn Slosher in 3 days. 2, the new Blaster is actually a good main weapon. And 3, the kit difference between the two isn't actually that bad. Which sounds crazy on paper, but here's what I think. The problem with Vanilla Bucket's kit, and the reason it was never picked before Machine, is that you can't go in, get into like a really good bucket aggressive position, and then pop strike. You would just die, right? Because the special just stops you from firing. While Reef Slider is a worse special than Tri Strike, Slider actually fits what 92 wants to do. Like, it's the perfect continuation. And on top of that, because we have Cooler, it is totally fine for the Reef Slider to go die if it does enough damage to win the team fight, which happens quite frequently. So we were like, okay, the comp makes Slider less bad. It enables Blaster way more as a QR weapon instead of Sword. And we also have a bunch of Cooler because after the buffs, you can cycle it so reliably. And Mecha is also a GOAT at Zap. So let's just do this. And so I made the decision, like, the last day, I think it was Saturday, where I officially said, okay, I'm just not going to do Sword. We can't make it work. Like, it doesn't feel good. I'm just going to do 92 this tournament. And we locked in the comp, and we were just like, we're just going to go for it. And it ended up working pretty well. It's really unfortunate game 4, Storm misinputted a jump, but we lost Inkjet on the defense because he jumped to Mecha and got striked. But regardless, I think outside of Jackpot games 2 and 3, we played pretty damn good pretty much the entirety of top 8 onward. I think our performance was surprisingly consistent, all things considered.
Yes, and the win against Duck Gang as well. Duck Gang looking, I mean, obviously those players have been, I kind of listed off the resume before, but that win was really impressive as well. So you take the game off of Starburst at the very beginning. What is it like playing against Starburst now with the new comp that you have? Did you feel like maybe they weren't ready for that because they're so used to fighting different things?
I felt like they were ready for it. I mean, Jackpot was doing some cooler stuff as well, and I know they scrim Jackpot all the time because like AR, Starburst, Graveyard, Jackpot all play each other way more than they play all the other teams. So like I knew they were not just prepared, but I knew they were better prepared for it because Jackpot with the cooler comp, like especially back then, was better at it than we were. So like we went into that expecting them to know exactly how to deal with it. Like we didn't think we had the element of surprise or anything. The only real thing that was something they might not have practiced against, or definitely did, is the 92. And even then, like, it's still very similar to, like, other blasters, especially range, which I have picked into them many times already. So I didn't expect any element of surprise or different. I was just confident that we would be able to keep up with them anyway. And I think outside of the Eelto game, which I think for that map we just need a different comp, I'm going to be honest. I think we totally kept pace with them the entire time. I think games 3 and 4 could have gone our way. Like, game 3, we almost capped zone at the end, and we had rain, and all of them were in a bad spot. We almost recapped quite a few times on that map, and Undertow, we were literally just constantly holding the offense for, like, 3.5 minutes straight almost. This set felt different with Starburst, because the previous sets felt like we could win, but it was a low chance. This felt like, okay, we're keeping up with them. There is a very small margin, and it's going to come down to small mistakes. And that's ultimately what I think it did. And that felt really good. Like, I have not been this high up in a tournament in a while in this game, especially with my team. Like, we have not gotten in top 3 before. This is our first one that we've placed this high.
So you go through this weekend. You're saying this is the best feeling you've had coming off of the tournament. You know Jackpot and Starburst aren't going to be here this weekend. How are you feeling going into this weekend, knowing that you will be seen as the favorite after what you just pulled off last weekend?
Actually, less confident. Not in a bad way. Like, let me put it this way. I was having a conversation with Goss earlier today, and he has the same thing. I'm not afraid of the other teams. I'm afraid of the format. I'm afraid of getting cheesed in turf. I'm afraid of us and CS or something fight before top 8. And I'm worried about, like, just accidentally choking something really simple because it is so easy to get cheesed in this format. And I am just paranoid that we are going to get incredibly unlucky in some way because we almost did in this tournament. If we didn't win the tiebreaker match, we would have fought Starburst, or not Starburst, we would have fought Jackpot in top 8. We had one tiebreaker match because we were tied with 7th place, and we would have fought Jackpot and never had the run we did if we had a slightly different turf stage. So, I mean, this isn't to describe the other teams. Like, we're definitely studying up, trust me. But, like, I know that we could beat all of these teams. I mean, I knew that going into the first one. But it is much scarier when the margin for error is lower. If it's top 4 and it's double elimination and we're playing maps that aren't terrible, like in the top 16 maps, which is the worst map pool I've ever seen, even before the game's launch, and all of that stuff is a factor, then I'm not as worried because I know we have more room to make mistakes and come out on top. But the scary part about the tournament is the first part is incredibly unforgiving and does not care about trying to have the best teams go the furthest. It just does not care. So you just have to get through it. So I think once we make it to top 4 again, I'm going to feel super confident. But until I see that top 16 bracket, the nerves are up, man.
Well, that's why I kind of mentioned Smoothie as one of my teams I think can go far in this tournament if the seeding works out. They did have to play Jackpot in round 2 and got 3-0'd by them. So it's can I just dodge those two teams? But again, those teams aren't here. So there seems to be a lot of teams that are right with each other in that category, and probably more than the 6 that I listed off. I do got to mention, though, since you did play in the double elimination stage, what was it like going through that? Because the stream lasted almost 4 hours, and that was after the hour and a half break from the single limb stage. Every single game. Okay, so tell me this. What's going on in between the games? Because it seems like there's this 7 or 8 minute break in between each one of the games before they get it. Does it take that long to counterpick, or are you being told to stall?
Some teams were struggling and taking a while with the counterpicks. Like Duck Gang took forever to pick their maps. Apparently they were having communication problems, so some of it was actually the teams were just slow, and there was no there was only one time where the TOs were like, hey, you really got to pick a map now, which was round 1 against Duck Gang, because they didn't pick a map for about 8 minutes. But outside of that, the TOs never cared too much about the time for the map picks. You literally could spend 5 minutes picking one, and they probably wouldn't say anything. So part of it was just there was no enforcement. Part of it was, though, as well, once you had it picked, you had to lock in the map, and if we were hosting, which a lot of the teams tried to, they were like, okay, wait, don't start yet. You have to wait for the okay every time you pick it. So I think what happens is they have a little segment where they talk about the map mode that's picked.
Yeah.
I think they have to go through that first, and then you're allowed to select ready and have the 90 seconds so that they ensure people can talk about it enough. That's just my theory. I don't know, but that's what it seemed like. But we came prepared for the format thing. I know how to go through this. So it's okay, we warm up, we play top 16, we take an hour break because we're in bottom half of the bracket, we play second, we come back, we scrim again, we then play the top cut, and we just try to... It's an endurance test. It's tough. You're just sitting there either playing or doing nothing for an absurd amount of time. We started at 11 a.m. Pacific time because we had to warm up, of course, and we ended at 6:30 to 7 p.m. PST.
Yeah.
So we were there 7 to 8 hours.
And by the way, you're playing...
if I remember correctly.
By the way, you're playing just 5 matches in that time frame.
Yeah, and it's barely any games too. I remember going to watch back, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's no games to look at. Just being wow, that's great.
Oh,
I mean, I'm not someone who hates the format that much because I kind of understand a lot of the decisions they do. Mainly, like, if they want time to advertise things so they can run this tournament, it's fine. My main gripe is just, I think if the day one portion was different, or even if they just, like, had some way to do the seating better, I have no idea how, it wouldn't be that bad. But I think it's day one that screws everything up because having to do not just turf war, but best of three, and in a gauntlet where you cannot stop playing because it favors sets played, like that environment creates the brackets that are problematic in the second day. Because the results are all turf war based, and like yeah, turf is not like random, but it's not the same as playing in the modes everyone's practiced in and modes that are actually made for competition and not things that are only good casually when you're new to the game and learning the controls. And that's what turf war is. So I think like I understand it, but it's definitely just it's a pain to play this tournament. Like you're right. If I didn't know that we had a shot of winning the tournament, I probably wouldn't do it. Cause it's just not fun the whole way. Like 90% of the tournament until the sets get really good is not fun, and day one is some of the worst experiences I've ever had playing the game.
You know what I liked when they did was the ladder stage, but it wasn't turf war. It was they did like the ranked modes, and I'm not talking about the one where it was best of one tower control. They did like actual you could pick all four different modes. I enjoyed that. My team wasn't going to make top. I don't think there was even a top cut in that. I think it was like the top four got like a prize in general or something like that. But I like just playing that is fun in general, but just grinding out 3 hours of turf war where
Yeah.
you're either playing against people that can't even hold a controller up or you're playing against people that are way beyond you. Yeah, that's it. The skill gap is kind of wide there. The last question I'm going to ask you, do you pay attention to chat of streams when you're playing?
No. I heard afterward, like, wow, everyone's telling you to switch off the S Blaster. I'm like, yeah, they don't know anything. I don't care.
Okay,
There's
so
so much BS in that chat. Like, I literally watched it back and I saw someone be like, Kyo's not Bucket's not that good. His positioning's so bad. And I'm like, damn, that guy's up there. Like just pretending he knows everything. Like, no, the chats are an absolute meme. Don't like I know to ignore that. They're awful.
and
They
that's just
always
the
are.
Twitch chat. Don't even look at the YouTube one.
No, that one was YouTube chat. YouTube
Okay.
chat was worse, but Twitch chat was pretty bad. Both of the chats were bad. I still like reading them. Like I've read so many horrible comments on YouTube that like at this point everything's just funny to me. Like everything's worn off. Like I've gotten, oh, you have pro in your name, but your gameplay looks terrible, and you're a redditor, and you're an idiot. Missiles isn't broken. They only shoot two per target, and you can dodge them. I'm like none. Like it is all just funny to me now. Like one day I will do a video that is just me sharing so many of the funny comments I got. Like funny bad comments. I legit have a 15-minute script just sitting there whenever I feel like making it a video, and it's all just funny comments like that.
Oh, that would
It's so silly.
that would be good because I know you probably you catch a lot of random strays for that. I remember whenever you put out like a tier list in Splatoon 2 and people were losing their mind that Sploosh was not top tier, like Vanilla Sploosh or something
No,
like
I
that.
have to talk about this sploosh. I'm sorry, this is gonna be a tangent. But I remember when I did my best and worst of every weapon class video, I said Vanilla Sploosh was bad, but in that same like minute, I said, but Sploosh 7 is really good. And there were still so many people upset that I thought specifically the Vanilla Sploosh was bad. Like, it didn't matter that I said another one was like a top tier in Rainmaker. No, they wanted this one to be good. Also, a surprising amount of people thought MPU Bamboo was bad, which is very funny. I had a lot of comments saying MPU Bamboo was bad and Splashdown good in the same sentence. And I found that very funny.
That makes a lot of sense to me for sure. That's well, hey, good luck this upcoming weekend. We're all going to be watching. Hopefully, you can get through the gauntlet and on all that stuff. But if not, we'll be keeping an eye on what Last Resort's got going on in the future. So, and
Oh, yeah,
thank
I'm
you,
here to...
thank you for coming on last minute as well. I'll check
Yeah, no
my
problem.
DMs earlier.
Thanks for having me on, and I'll be sure to get hopefully I can get 92 Blossom rep, and we'll get its status up in the community because I think it is a crazy weapon. So
And if
I'll
it
do my best with
doesn't,
it.
If it doesn't work out, YouTube chat was right. And don't let the YouTube chat win. Keep with the blaster. Make it work.
True. I can't let YouTube win. All right. Thank you so much, Popcast.
That was Pro Chara for a last minute little chat right there. Some insight into that. So some things we learned from that chat. Don't trust Tetra players. That makes a lot of sense. If somebody thinks you need to die 20 times to be successful at the game, they're probably full of crap. I also appreciate the insight as to what's actually going on. I always just assume there's some Nintendo person in the actual Battlefy chat, like coordinating everything. Like, we need you guys to wait 5 minutes. They need to talk about some things. But I also like, it's just refreshing to see Last Resort use different things and actually be successful with it. There are other teams that go off meta and they're not that successful, but Last Resort works and you can tell what they're doing makes sense. They're going to be an exciting team going forward in this one for sure. I just spent over an hour talking about Nintendo stuff. We're running out of time. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to skip the weekly recap. And I'll save my sponsor for next time. We'll just go right into Minnow Cup. Minnow Cup took place this last Saturday. You might have missed it, but it did actually take place on Saturday. 48 teams officially participated in this one. I don't know if they all checked in or what, but it has been a long time since I actually talked about Minnow Cup here on the podcast. I stopped talking about it because there just wasn't really anything interesting to say about it. Or just whenever Minnow Cup took place, there was something else to kind of throw in there to talk about so that I don't just spend hours talking about this stuff on the Popcast. Like a Nintendo qualifier, or somebody said something stupid on Twitter that deserved a little bit of segment. So it just never worked out for an opportunity for me to talk about Minnow Cup. But I'm going to take the opportunity to do that just now. And by the way, the first Minnow Cup I didn't talk about in depth on the podcast here, the team that won it was pissed. They complained on Twitter that I didn't give them the head pat they deserved for winning that Minnow Cup. Well, here we are to give a head pat to a team I didn't even know existed until I looked at this tournament, and they absolutely curb stomped it here. Yes, 2 Minnow Cups ago, the teams that finished first and second. First place was Secret Elixir. Second place was the Splat-A-Lot Imbeciles, now known as Velocity. That next Low Ink, just a few days after that, those two teams played against each other again in grand finals of Low Ink. This time the Imbeciles getting the better of Secret Elixir. The Imbeciles have moved on. Secret Elixir has still yet to win Low Ink, has gotten back to grand finals, but couldn't get the job done in Game 7. So yes, there is something to take away from these Minnow Cup tournaments still, even though I haven't been talking about them much as of late. Because apparently the skill level is 1-to-1. And looking at this past Minnow Cup, maybe the skill level is above what a Low Ink is at. So I don't sit here and talk about this tournament for the he-depth of the universe. And not to go down and give a list of the winners and losers and who I think improved and all that stuff. There were 5 things that I took away from this tournament that I want to give a mention to. 5 things that caught my eye in this Rainmaker only tournament. Hey, if it's Rainmaker only, does that mean that it's a valid tournament? Sure. Why not? Who cares? The first thing I noticed from this tournament, I don't talk about the team Distinct enough. I don't think I've rarely, if ever, even mentioned the words Distinct here on the Popcast. This is a team that has been consistently making Alpha Bracket. They made Alpha Bracket last month, and they won Silver Bracket in this tournament, beating Aquatic Vanguard and basically Black Komodo. I'm assuming they're going by Pride Komodo this time around in a Silver Bracket tournament to win it all, beating Aquatic Vanguard 3-1. I don't talk about Distinct enough, but eventually, well, there's a lot of teams I don't talk about it, but eventually you guys do enough wins to where I have no choice but to talk about you. Distinct should be in that category, and they deserve a little bit more attention, especially from people like me. The second thing I noticed, the Final Reckoning is entering that awkward kind of stage. They were known as the Final Phantom here, and I don't know if that means that they played with different players from the Final Reckoning, or if they had some slightly different players here and there or something. I don't know. They got third place in this event. What I'm starting to find out about the Final Reckoning is that they are starting to establish themselves, if they haven't already established themselves, as an alpha blue blood team, which is bad because that means that they can't close out these tournaments when they get a chance to do it. They always go far in these tournaments, but they can never get the job done. It always makes you think, if these guys play in some other events, they'll do better in them than what they do in these skill cap ones because there's no pressure on them. And these players do. I've been seeing them. I've been paying attention to Paddling Pool and Triton Cup this past week because there was no IPL event, so I actually looked into those. There are some tournaments that these Final Reckoning players are playing in. I hope they continue to do that because they will get better quicker than what they're doing in these low-level tournaments. I just feel like the pressure is getting to them in the later rounds. But you have to be good enough to even make it to the later rounds consistently, which they are. Number 3. The Jelly Squids are really, really close to turning the corner. Really close to turning that corner. They've been that slow burn team, slowly inching their way up the mountain like the little inchy worm turtle that they are, but they're about to hit a new level. And the reason they're doing that is because they play every single tournament on God's green earth. These guys rarely, if ever, take a tournament off. And all of that experience you're getting through tournaments. And I wish I did this more with my team as when we were younger, when we were fresher. We scrimmed so much. We scrimmed a lot. And scrims are important. But what if you just played in tournaments instead of scrim? What if you use tournaments as practice? Well, we're afraid to get bad results or somebody's going to upset us and then they're going to go on Twitter and be like, oh, it's 3-0 this team or whatever. Jelly Squids are going to get better. Eventually, they're going to turn the corner and be a consistent top 10-ish team. They made top cut here. Dark Masters knocked them out. Dark Masters finished in 4th place. The fourth thing I noticed in this tournament is this team name that I can't really pronounce all the way through, but they finished in 2nd place. Pentamento. These guys look really good, and it's kind of weird. You got a couple of players from Up the Ante. You got Toes, you got Garrett, mixed in with some new players. Jimby and I can't pronounce that name. That's a different language right there. I looked back to the VOD. I didn't see Orbism play for Pimento. But I like the fact that Orbism is on the roster. Why is that? Because I've been saying for a while, back when I was talking about Minnow Cup, I didn't think it made sense for Minnow Cup to just auto-take everybody that IPL bans out of Low Ink and say, now you have to be banned from Minnow Cup. By the letter of their rules, and I've been saying this for a while, just because you win Low Ink, yeah, you're banned from Low Ink, it doesn't mean you're Div 4. It doesn't mean you're mid-level. It doesn't mean that that your dog is going to start respecting you. It just means you're banned from Low Ink because you won it. I like the fact that a Low Ink banned player is playing in Minnow Cup. That shows they looked at it and said, no, we feel like you're fine for our tournament. It doesn't need to be... I don't want Low Ink to be the gatekeepers for everything in this community. So I like the fact that somebody banned from Low Ink was able to play in this one. And even though they didn't play on stream when Pimento was playing the team that won it, I like the fact that at least Orbism was on there. Or maybe they were on there as a joke. Hell, what I know. The fifth thing I noticed from this tournament, and the fifth and final thing. The team that won this one, Ursa Major. You're not going to see them much longer in low-level events. When you play in your first event, now I don't even know who these guys are. I looked briefly over their Battlefy history. I don't think any of them have ever played in a low ink. I think they played in some like SACs, and we haven't seen them in a while. Or if they played in a low ink, it was like in Splatoon 2 or something like that. But it like these guys were just mostly new. I think I should know who Little Buddy is, shouldn't I? That name does sound familiar. Regardless, you're not going to see Ursa Major playing in tournaments going forward. I highly doubt they'll pass low ink verification. Because these guys just completely destroyed this tournament. They didn't drop a single game. They did not drop a single game. I can't think of the last time. I think one team did it in a little squid league. The last time somebody went totally undefeated in a low ink, I don't know if it's ever happened, honestly. If it did, it happened like back in 2019 or 2018, like way long ago. Even Rising Matrix didn't have a perfect tournament. They lost one singular game to the Sea Boys. But Ursa Major, yeah, they turned this tournament into it wasn't an ass whooping. It was an absolute ass whooping deluxe that they dealt out right there. Nicely done to them. They stake. Oh, well, no, Little Squid League is not the thing. So, I forgot who won the last Minnow Cup tournament. My point being is this. I should still be paying attention to Minnow Cup, even though I might not always have time to talk about it, because there's always little things you can take away from a tournament without actually watching it all the way through and doing a deep dive into it and breaking down this set versus that set. There's always something we can learn about the teams going forward, and those were the 5 things that I learned. Doesn't matter to me. Bruh, Air Sign's been a part of the podcast for a long time. I think they get the message here, and we always appreciate Air Sign. What was the message that you said, anyways? I said it correct. A lot of them are streamers. I feel like I should know who Little Buddy is, though. I feel like I've recognized this name. But there we go. That's it. We're done. It's been an hour and 15 minutes. We want to go eat lunch, dinner. If you'd like to be a part of the podcast in any way, feel free to reach out. My social below: Twitter, Mr._Popgun, Discord, Popgun, #5882, YouTube at 25Popgun, Twitch at Popgun25, Anchor.fm/Popgun. Jazzicorn. Good luck to everybody playing in SAC, Little Squid League, the Overlord Tournament, anything else that you guys are going to be doing. And get vaccinated, stay safe, and don't do anything dumb. See you next week.